One question I get asked quite a lot this year in 2025 is, Jace, which is going to be the next Scarlet and Violet era set to boom like what happened in the Sword and Shield era regarding sets like Fusion Strike, Brilliant Stars, Lost Origin, and so on, right? We saw that happen over the past month or so with these big, huge booms with the Sword and Shield era booster boxes. We saw Fusion Strike like over $700 a box, Brilliant Stars, Astral Radiance, Silver Tempest, like $300-400 boxes, Lost Origins like $400-500. Like, we've just seen absolute huge booms, like just out of nowhere really, of these Sword and Shield era booster boxes. And I get a couple of messages here and there, a few emails going, Jace, I've been picking up some stuff from Scarlet and Violet, but what do you think will be the next big thing? Do you think there'll be certain sets that will just absolutely boom like we saw in Sword and Shield? And which ones should I be looking at picking up? So today we'll be going through about 4 or so sets from the Scarlet and Violet era, which I think are going to be great. And I think that these sets are not necessarily the kind of the obvious choice, as it were, but I do feel like they're going to be pretty good choices to pick up. Now, I do know that some things are pretty expensive right now, but if we're looking for that long term, let's say you bought a booster box and it was $200. Well, if you look at Fusion Strike, and you could be like, well, why would I pay at the time $200 for a Fusion Strike booster box? Well, now it's $700. It's probably going to go up even more. It's not too bad, right? So that's what we're looking at today. We're looking at some sets and we're going through each one, and I'll explain why I've chosen these sets as well. Let's jump into it. So the first one we're looking at today is 151. I mean, kind of an obvious set that it's going to be very, very good. It doesn't have a booster box. We do have the ETB here to give you guys an example of the pricing of this. Now, this is a amazing set. I think I put it in like S tier when I did a tier list last, because this set is just so good. The nostalgia's there, incredible artwork, and everybody loves the OGs. And in my opinion, I think this set is just going from strength to strength to strength. And I think down the long haul, it's going to do incredibly well. We're already seeing it doing very well already, with the ETBs sitting at a nice, cool $200 plus. We go back over the last 6 months, we can see the growth of this. Of course, TCG Player is in the orange and the average market price is in the blue. So we're looking like eBay between eBay and TCG Player. We're looking here that TCG Player is obviously more than eBay, but around $200 is where the price point starts. Well, sorry, ends. It started at just under $100. Over the past 6 months, it's doubled in value, which is just absolutely incredible. When we take a look at the set of 151, we can see the total value of the set here is about $1,100. That has actually dropped a little bit. We have seen a lot of Scarlet and Violet era stuff cool off a little bit, so a lot of the overall set value prices have taken a hit. But when I look at a set, I like to look at how strong the overall value of the set is and where that value lies. Okay, now you could get some sets that have a very, very high top end, and then the rest of the set is pretty terrible. So, prime example, if you go back from the Sword and Shield era, one example that always springs to mind is Champion's Path. You have 2 massive Charizards, and the rest of the set is, well, trash. Whereas something like 151 is a little bit different. Yes, we do have some big chase cards, of course, in that Charizard at $200, but we also have a lot of money spread across quite a few cards, which helps keep that, volume and that high, right, that value high. If we look at 1.1k, 200 of that is in the Charizard. So we look at $900 spread across the rest of the set. It's not a massive set either, so that also helps. So when we look at this, we've got the Blastoise, the Venusaur, the Zapdos. We've got loads of illustration rares that are holding good value. And I like to judge a set on how many cards are like $10, $20, $30, $40, $50. Is there any over 100? And so on and so forth. And this is an example of a set where having that value spread across the set means that when you start getting certain cards increasing in value, or maybe spiking or anything like that, then the value is still there in the rest of the set. It doesn't feel that bad to open, so people will have the desire to open this in the future, which means it will increase the value even more. And I always like to go for sets where people like to open them, because at the end of the day, people want to open up product, and when there's less of it around and people want to open up even more, it'll go up in value. The demand is going to go up and the value is going to go up. So yes, across the board, of course, if you haven't seen 151, it is all of the OGs from the original, red and blue, as it were, from the first generation. And it is just a nostalgia-filled set with a lot of value sprinkled across the set and some absolute huge fan favorites. I highly rate this set. I think it's going to do very, very well. If you're looking to pick up some ETBs, maybe an Ultra Premium collection box, or even any collection boxes that you can get hold of for 151 right now, Blooming Water as an example, then I would go for it. Up next, we have Surging Sparks. Now, I highly rate Surging Sparks. I think Surging Sparks is going to be one of the better sets and stronger performing booster box sets in the long haul for the Scarlet and Violet era. And it has dropped, only ever so slightly, mainly because of restocks, but overall it's held a very good price point. Of course, TCG Player, it's always above eBay. Just seems to be the way of everything these days. But we did see a peak of around 260, and it's now dipped down to that 220, 230. So it's taken around about a 10% drop with some restocks, okay? Very strong performance set. Don't forget, it only came out in November last year. It was doing very, very well. It's not even a year old. That's how good this set is doing. And overall, I think just in general, people are really, really enjoying this set. And I think it's going to do very, very well in the future. The fact is that it's holding very, very strongly. When we look at the overall value of Surging Sparks, we're looking at 1.2k. That has, again, also dropped in value pretty much from the big chase cards of the set, and mainly that Pikachu, which is, you know, a big card, but it has fallen. So similar to 151, I like to look at the spread of value in this set. Yes, there's a big top chase card in that Pikachu. However, Pikachu has fallen, right? It was like $600. It's now less than $300. It's dropped more than 50% in value. But the value has been spread. So it's like, yes, the overall set has gone down, but that's because the Pikachu has gone down in price. Whereas a lot of the other stuff have held quite well. Like the Latias, for example, the Milotic have done reasonably well. Even like the Gold Pika is doing pretty good for a gold card. But if you look at the rest of the set, you still have that value there. You got some $50 cards, some 40s, some 30s. You got some nice 20s, quite a few that are over 10. So again, pretty good. Yes, it is kind of top heavy in these like 3 cards, or mainly the Pikachu, but it's not solely top heavy. So similar to like 151, yes, this is not nostalgia, but it's got a nice spread of value across the set. On top of that, it's a huge set. Tough pull rates. So getting these cards obviously is going to be even more difficult than it would be, say, from like 151. But I think because it does have Pikachu in it, right, and it has some big fan favorites, I think a lot of people are going to be looking at this set down the line, right? For me, the cards that stick out is the Latias and Latios. Of course, the Alt Art Tag Team from Team Up is ridiculously expensive. This is kind of like a homage to that. Put these two together and they form a nice little bit of artwork, and it just looks absolutely incredible. So for me, I think it's just really, really cool, and I think this set will do really, really well. Again, you've got some cool fan favorites, but for me, I think the power of Pikachu will carry this set in the long haul. But I do rate it quite highly. I think I put it in A tier, I think. But I do think this is going to be a very, very good set moving forward. Next up, we've got Twilight Masquerade. Now, this was another set which I think is going to do very well in that long term. And the reason why is because it has always performed exceptionally well, and we've seen that happen quite a bit. This set kind of reminds me in a way of its journey is similar to Brilliant Stars. Brilliant Stars in Sword and Shield era was like, value was always like ahead of the pack. It kind of was weird. It was like always more expensive than all the other booster boxes, but just kind of stayed like that for a long time. And then other sets started to overtake it in value, and it was still available, and everyone was like, Brilliant Stars not really moving much, not really doing much. And then it's now over $400 a booster box, and it's one of the more priciest sets in the Sword and Shield era. So I kind of feel like Twilight Masquerade has that potential as well. We go back over the last 6 months, and this bad boy has been climbing like crazy. We're looking at what, 130, 140 back 6 months ago, and now we're looking at gaining pretty much $100 in value, which is very, very impressive. And I do think this is going to be very good. I mean, on eBay, it's a lot cheaper than it is on TCG Player, but I think Twilight Masquerade has that potential. It's now more expensive than Surgeon. Yes, Surgeon did just get a restock, but I think Twilight Masquerade will do very well. I think it will easily be a 500 plus box down the line. The fact it's pretty much halfway there already, and this set is pretty much a year old, which is ridiculously impressive in all honesty. So yeah, I think Twilight Masquerade is going to do very well. When we look at the overall value of the set, we're looking just over $1,000. Very similar, right? If you look at the value of all three of these sets we looked at so far, it's round about the same. So the Greninja is again another big top heavy card, similar to the Pikachu. But again, we do have some value, but this is a very top heavy set in that Greninja. So if you took the Greninja out of it, then we're looking around about a $700 to $750 set, which is okay, but not the best, especially in the modern era that we're in at the moment with these massively huge sets. This is still a relatively large set, tough pull rates. You've got big chase cards in the EV. There are some like illustration rares or special illustration rares that are a bit like the Ogre-Pons. A lot of the full art trainers you get in here, stuff like that, are not the best. But you do have two big trainers in the Carmine and the Perrin, which do hold good value. EV, of course, but it is that Greninja, and it is a very top-heavy set. Of course, you've got the Chansey, the Tatsugiri, the Growlithe, and the Infernape, which I think are great standout cards in this set. But I just don't feel like it's as great as 151, but I still think the overall appeal for this set is definitely going to be there, because I think the Greninja is going to be a card which people will want to chase down the line. And I think that's really important to keep that in mind, that the chase is real for the Greninja, and I think it's going to be a really, really good one. But we're looking around about $1,050 in value right now, which is pretty good, but I still think this is going to be a good one. Next up, we've got Temporal Forces. I always keep talking about this being the dark horse. I think this is the dark horse of the Scarlet and Violet era. We go back over the last 6 months, and this set has gone from $120 up to now over $200. Now, Fusion Strike was a dark horse. It was a $80 to $90 booster box for the longest time. People liked the Gengar and the Espeon, of course, but it was nowhere near what it is now. And, you know, it was a set where people were like, oh, whatever. There were two like involved in Celebrations, Brilliant Stars, Evolving Skies. The kind of Fusion Strike was really a dark horse. It really, really was. And it just smashed everything out of the water. I kind of feel like Temporal Forces kind of is like along those lines. I kind of compare it similar to like Chill and Rain, just because there's so many amazing special illustration rares in this set, which does help it a lot. And I do think the power of the legendary beasts is pretty strong, similar to like the legendary birds, but I do feel like that will help the set in that long haul. So we're looking around about $200 there for a booster box. Now, when we look at the overall value of the set, it is less than the others, okay? We are looking around about $800 in that value, but where does that value lie? We do have the Raging Bolt at $82, and, you know, like, we don't have a card that's over 100, that's fine, but again, we've got a reasonably nice spread of value across the set. Yes, it's around about $200 to $300 less than some of the others we've just looked at, but you also got to look at where else that value is within this set. And there is quite a lot, right? You do have some big special illustration rares. Look, the top 5 cards are all SIRs, which is very, very good. And then again, you've got some big chase ones. You've got the Ghastly, huge fan favorite card. Here we've got the Gengar Full Art, which a lot of people do like. We've got the Deerling, the Metagross. There's just so many nice illustration rares in this set, which also help massively. So we've got a nice even spread across the set in the value of the cards in here. And it's not a huge set either. It's kind of like a medium-sized set. Now, in my opinion, I think Temporal Forces has that potential. I don't really see it being on that same level as the other ones that we looked at, but I do think this will probably be a $400-500 plus booster box in the future. So keep that in mind. So if you are spending like $200 a box, it's not the be-all end-all, so it's not too bad, but keep that in mind when you are buying this set. But I do think it's going to be a good one in the future. It is just over a year old, so it's not massively old right now. And I don't think there's going to be any more reprints of this either, so keep that one in mind. And then finally, we got Paldea Evolved. So we're looking at a pretty pricey booster box here. We go back 6 months, we can see the real big boom. This set was around about $140, and we're now looking at what, anywhere between $250 to $300. Big gap between eBay and TCG Player, but we're looking at around about $250 to $300 a booster box, which is very expensive. In fact, it is the most expensive set in the Scarlet and Violet era when it comes to booster boxes, and it has taken that time to get there, of course. And I think the set's fantastic, and we've been seeing, like, Paldea Evolved is an interesting one. We've been seeing a lot of like just scarcity of it, really, and there hasn't been a huge amount of reprints. People didn't really care about it to begin with. It was like $90 a box any day, every day, and now that's not the case, and it is selling quite consistently at that, like I say, $250 to $300. Twilight Masquerade is pretty close behind it. Of course, Destined Rivals is high inflated pre-order prices, but naturally, somewhat naturally anyway, Paldea Evolved is doing very, very well. And I do expect this to be a set that will be probably $1,000 a box in the future. So when we look at the set, we're looking again, similar value, that 1.1k. Apart from Temporal, pretty much everything sat around roughly the same amount of value. We're looking at the set. We've got the Magikarp, $200 has fallen in price. If we took $200 away from it, there's still $900 spread across this set, which is very, very impressive. So again, we're looking at another set that's got that value spread very nicely throughout the set, which is very, very good. And the illustration rares are key in this one. Magikarp, it's an illustration rare. The Tyranitar, I believe the Raichu is an illustration. It might be a special illustration, but Mousehold as well. There's some big normal illustration rares. They're just holding so much value in this set. The SIRs didn't do the best, but the illustration rares, honestly, this set has so many and they hold such good value. It's just so good, right? It's just such a good set. The pull rates are not too bad, actually, in Paldea Evolved. We are looking at a set that's pretty much 2 years old now. The time flies, really. But yeah, Paldea Evolved, 2 years old, 1.1k in value, has dropped a little bit along with everything else. But I do feel like this set is going to perform very, very well in that long term. Really, I do think it's going to do very well. I think it's probably going to be one of the better performing ones that we've seen, which is going to be very, very good. So there you have it, guys. Those are the sets that I would pick at the moment. Of course, like, it's a little bit too early to tell with sets like Destined Rivals, Prismatic, and Journey Together. They are quite recent, and we are looking for more restock and reprints coming. Pokemon have said that they are focusing on the sets that have been released this year. I think they've said from Surging Sparks onwards. So anything before Surging, Stellar Crown, Twilight, and so on, are probably going to be a little bit harder now to get hold of and become more and more expensive, which is a bit of a shame. But they are focusing on pretty much sets that are released in 2025, which means Prismatic, Journey, Destined Rivals, and so on. I think Destined Rivals will be up here in definite sets that you want to invest in the long term. Journey, I'm not 100% sold on it at the moment. It is a fun set to open, but doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be a great set moving forward. The overall value of Journey Together is quite low. It is a small set, however, so you've got to keep that in mind. We don't know the value of Destined Rivals just yet, and Prismatic is in a whole league of its own, and I would probably say, like, Prismatic's kind of the obvious one that would do very well, but we kind of look at some of the others as well. Now, don't get me wrong, there are a lot of great sets in Scarlet and Violet era, so it is quite tricky to choose which is the best ones to go for. I think these ones we learned from today are probably maybe the best performing ones. That's how I would rank them. You could argue maybe some of the others, maybe Paradox Rift could do pretty good as well, have that potential. There is a lot of potential to be had in the Scarlet and Violet era, but yeah, really exciting times ahead. If that's the video and you've enjoyed it, make sure to smash the like button and make sure to subscribe for more Pokemon content. And guys, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Would you add any other sets in here? Of course, I mean, Paldea and Fates I absolutely love, and I think you'll do very well as a Fates set. But I kind of feel like, as far as, like, you know, ETB sets are concerned, 151's pretty good. Prismatic, kind of an obvious one. But, you know, some of the other booster box sets, Paldea Evolved, Twilight, stuff like that, are very, very good. And I think they'll perform very, very well in the future. But that is it from me, guys, in today's video. And for more Pokemon content, make sure to click the video on the screen. And, of course, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You guys are legends, and I'll see you in the next one.